Oh, will Belichick and the New England Patriots upset Brady and the Bucs? Storylines aplenty in that one. Wilds is already fired up. Kyrie Irving was a no-show in Brooklyn yesterday, but he did meet the media over Zoom. Of course, we're all doing everything over Zoom. We're going to share what he had to say. And could the king, LeBron James, actually have been a gridiron great? Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Oh, we have a fantastic show. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. We got Nick, we got Broussard. Kevin Wilds is fired up for the game this weekend. It's a delightful topic. I will ask you, Nick, you buying Braun could have been a beast in the NFL?
Oh, like while playing in the NBA? Yes. If he was only an NFL player, probably the greatest ever. Like, it depends. Is he splitting time or is he full time? That's the difference between like all pro and all time greatest.
Mr. Hyperbolic himself. We'll get to that, but we got to kick things off in Dallas. Cowboys, Eagles, but really, guys, just Cowboys last night. Dallas put on quite a show for Dak, his first home game since that gruesome ankle injury last year. He was good, like really good. 238 yards, 3 touchdowns. Zeke, he was pretty good, had his best game of the season as well. 95 yards, 2 TDs. Boys get it done. They beat the Birds 41-21. How about that? Just to solidify the fun, Dallas's Twitter account, Beat by Dallas. Little dig at Nick Sirianni's practice garb this week that said beat Dallas. Oh, I think we all remember that now. Division wins, always just a little bit sweeter. What do you think, Dak Prescott?
Complete, from defense, offense, complimentary football, all the way around. Just from halftime, just the way to continue it, the way we communicate it. That was fun. I think that showed just the brotherhood that we're creating and the culture that we're creating within this team, and that's just one, and that's just a step, and that was a big step in the building block of where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish.
Oh, Teal Blazers. Broussard, is it starting to look like the Dallas Cowboys are legit contenders in the NFC after what you saw last night?
I'm not ready to call them a Super Bowl contender, which is what I consider a contender, getting to the Super Bowl or a chance to. But clearly they're going to get to the playoffs. They're going to win this horrible division. They should go, at the very least, they should go 5-1 in the division, if not 6-0. All right. And so they're going to get into the playoffs. They should have a strong record, so they might get a favorable matchup in the first round. So I could see them winning a playoff game, but I've got them as the 4th best team in the NFC, Jenna. I've got Tampa Bay, the Rams, the Packers, and then the Cowboys. So I would not call them a Super Bowl contender. Now, what I like about them is their offense is becoming incredibly balanced, which is great. All right, we knew they were pass heavy last year or even before that, before Dak went down. And then game 1, it was the same thing. The last 2 weeks, they've really been balanced offensively. Nick mocked me. He mocked me when I said they had thunder and lightning in the backfield with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. I think he owes me an apology. He said it was like a rumble in the wilderness instead of thunder. No, it was thunder last night, Nick. Ezekiel turned back the clock, 5+ yards a carry, and then Pollard came in with the sweetness. They look really nice on the ground. The offense is fine. We know what they can do through the air. The problem is the defense. And their pass defense is bad. The defense has improved. You know, love Micah Parsons. Trayvon Diggs looks like he could be a Pro Bowler. But overall, the defense is really bad against the pass. And when you look at the 3 teams I had ahead of them, Tom Brady, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, they will eat them up in a playoff game through the air. So they're a very good team, will make the playoffs, could win a playoff game, Nick, but not a Super Bowl contender.
Well, and to be fair to the Cowboys, I thought the defense played excellent last night. The 21 points is a little misleading. One of those Eagles' touchdown was a fumble recovery in the end zone, and the other was in garbage time. So the Cowboys' defense really only gave up 1 touchdown of substance. And, by the way, the Cowboys defense does have reinforcements coming. DeMarcus Lawrence will be back. Keanu Neal will be back. And on the offensive end, Lyle Collins, assuming he's not in any more bribery scandals, potentially at some point could be back. So, like, the Cowboys, Cowboys fans this morning, I think are feeling great. Like, man, Dak looks awesome. We just dog-walked the Eagles on national television. We still haven't yet played the Giants and Washington. To Broussard's point about some easy victories, could forget, win the division. Could we get the 1 seed? Could we have the easiest path to the Super Bowl? Unfortunately, your buddy Nick Wright is here to tell you none of it matters, because you should feel terrible after last night, because sometimes things happen and they're so bad, they're so egregious that you're like, oh, that right there is why you can't win a championship. And I am here to tell you, unless you have an all-time team or an all-time quarterback, when your head coach cannot tell time, and that's what I'm going to say it. It's not clock management. It's can you tell time, like they teach you in kindergarten. If the answer to that question is no, you're not winning a championship in the NFL. You're not winning multiple playoff games in the NFL. The most important, most resonant, most relevant thing that happened in last night's game was the final 90 seconds of the first half, where Mike McCarthy had a meltdown. So much so that a referee tried to help him. Referee went over to him like, hey, buddy, I'm just letting you know, I think you're supposed to call timeout here. Like, you sure you don't want to call timeout? I'm walking over here to let you know. Like, I'm not really supposed to do this, but this is embarrassing. Like, before this happened, I just want the audience to know, it is, let me get it exactly right, 3rd and 24. There is a minute 50 left. 3rd and 24, minute 50 left. Ball on the Philly 32. Dallas with 2 timeouts. You want to use one of those, Mike? Nah. Let's just see how this plays out. Make sure we stop them on the 3rd and 24. Well, you did. Now it's 4th and 5, minute 10 left. You're definitely going to call timeout, right? You're calling timeout. The referee's walking over to you to be like, Mike, you got to actually say the words. I can't just do it for you. No, I'm good. Let it go to the half. If you were watching the Manning cast Wilds, poor Peyton Manning almost had an embolism. He was like, what are you doing? Call timeout. Yeah. Can't win. Coaching's too important. And I think it's fair to ask, to a line from Office Space, what is it you do around here? So Kellen Moore calls the plays. Dan Quinn's in charge of the defense. Jerry Jones picks the players. What does Mike McCarthy do? Aside from being an unenthusiastic cheerleader on the sideline. You can't win that way. Can't win that way, Wilds. It was egregious and indefensible.
Okay, so he provides leadership. If the Cowboys go on a losing streak, he breaks out his Gallagher sledgehammer and fires everybody up, I guess. That's what we heard from last year. I think you're 100% right on Mike McCarthy. Broussard, I think there is an easy solution, and it's not necessarily hire Nick Wright, although it's in the same vein. He needs to just hire somebody. Jerry Jones needs to hire somebody to manage this. And it's like, I know like Nick is making a little bit of a hyperbolic point, let's say, but this is an issue and it can cost you a game. And Mike McCarthy's track record is so bizarre when it comes to clock management. There's a 2018 study that says he wasted the most timeouts. And then now he's not doing the timeouts. And last week, he was claiming it was a stadium issue. And one time, he got it right in the wild card game against the Giants, where he aggressively used his timeouts to get the ball back for Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers hit that famous Hail Mary to Randall Cobb. So it is a problem. You can't say it's not a problem. Jerry Jones or Mike McCarthy, they have to hire a specific person. If that person is already there, that person needs someone else. Because in the Manning cast, Eli's like, well, what about the clock management guy? So they might have someone there, but it's not working. They need to call Dallas HR and get a new person in. Maybe it's Nick Wright. Maybe it's Warren Sharp. Maybe it's somebody. Maybe it's you, Broussard. It could be anybody you want. But this needs to be solved.
It can be someone high who plays Madden. It can be a stoned college student who plays 12 hours of Madden a day. And this is not hard. You don't need Broussard to find someone special. It's just, can you tell time?
That's the question.
You know who it... I don't think it's
it
that,
could be
though.
Quinn.
You were joking about the referee telling him, you know, hey, why don't you... I'm not sure the referee didn't walk over there and was like, are you guys going to call timeout? Do you want to... You know, like, not telling him to call
totally
it.
Was.
But, like, okay, are you going to call one? Like, seriously.
Like, I'm
so
here.
I don't think it's an issue of you got to have a guy that manages the clock. And McCarthy knows. He just didn't for whatever reason. And only Jerry Jones or Stephen Jones is going to be able to tell him, look, you got to start calling timeouts or get in the headset and have somebody say, Jerry just said call the timeout. Because that's why McCarthy's there, guys. We know that.
That'll get his
because he'll let Jerry be Jerry.
Jenna,
he let Jerry be
Jenna,
Jerry.
What do you
we know
think
that's why he's there.
Aaron Rodgers was thinking while he's drinking his 3 fingers of whiskey watching that game. You think he's kicking his feet up saying, I won a Super Bowl
Told you
with
so.
that doofus.
Yes, with that guy.
I won a Super Bowl with him. Should count as 3 rings.
Absolutely. Well,
Rodgers
despite
is 3
not
rings.
being able to tell time,
Ben
according
Gavel.
to Nick, the Dallas Cowboys pulled off the Monday night win. They are now 2-1. They welcome the undefeated Panthers on Sunday. Back talking the Eagles side of this game, wasn't nearly as joyful for them. Jalen Hurts taking the blame for the loss. Are the Eagles in serious season-long trouble? We'll discuss next. First things first. Drawing a blank, the Eagles lost again last night, this time to divisional rival Dallas. That's never fun. Jalen Hurts did have his share of chances, but threw a couple of costly picks, including a pick 6 to Trayvon Diggs. Philly never really could recover after that. Here was Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts on a stinker last night.
I take responsibility for how this game went tonight. I take responsibility for that. I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to learn from it. We're going to be a better team from it. I believe that. I truly believe that. You know, you take you a deuce, you don't sit there and look at it. You flush it and move on. We're going to flush it and move on.
Good God. You can't.
Wow.
Just for the record, I was like, we're not going to put that in the show. And all the guys were like, oh, that's going in the show. That's the best soundbite ever. I was like, it's literally the worst soundbite I've ever heard. And they insisted and they won, and I was outvoted. But let me start with you, Chris Broussard. All 191 centimeters of you. Last night's loss to the Cowboys should have Eagles fans feeling blank. Why do you think I put it that way?
Well, look. First of all, I got to give Jalen Hurts props. He is the epitome of cool. I love his voice. Obviously, there was a soundbite, but his suit. And did you see the hat he wore? Did you see the hat he wore into the stadium? I mean, the dude is cool. All right, that said, Jenna, my word is enlightened. Philadelphia fans should feel enlightened. Stick with me. I know you're confused at this point. Look, they know now who they are. All right, if you go back a few weeks, they were beginning to lose sight of who they really were. All right, they demolished Atlanta in week 1, 32-6. And all of a sudden, Philadelphia fans are thinking, we got something. But no, what you had was a horrible opponent. I mean, Atlanta is horrific. How anybody could pick them for the playoffs, I don't think Matt Ryan's dad picked them to make the playoffs. So that is an absolutely horrible team. But it fooled the Philadelphia fans. Oh, did somebody pick them? It fooled the Philadelphia fans. Then a week ago, you played a good San Francisco team that will make the playoffs in the NFC. You played them tough. Only lost by 6. So Philly fans were starting to think, we got something. Our division is weak. We can win. You saw Nick Sirianni wearing the Beat Dallas T-shirts he gave to all his players. He said it was like an old college rivalry. Philly was all in on this team. But now you know. You stink. All right? You knew it before the season started, but you got away from it. Now you're enlightened. You stink. This season is about one thing and one thing only. Seeing what you have in Jalen Hurts. Is he your guy? Great in week 1, bad in week 2, up and down in week 3. See if he's your franchise guy. That's what this season is about. Philly fans, consider yourselves enlightened after last night.
Yeah. To your point, Broussard, Week 1, there are a bunch of results from Week 1 that I think now we can just throw out. Philly looking as good as it did. Buffalo looking as bad as it did. Green Bay looking as bad as it did. The Texans looking good. We're like, okay, Week 1 aberrations. Just throw those out. If I'm Philly, though, or a Philly fan, I'm feeling terrified because 1-0 is about to be 1-6. Look at their next 4 games.
Yes.
First of all, this Sunday, the Chiefs are going to come to the link and mollywop them. Then you play that Panthers defense, then the Bucs, then the undefeated Raiders in Vegas. They don't have another game where they won't be at least a touchdown underdog until they play the Lions. And so if you're a Philly fan, I know the year started off great and Week 2 was kind of a moral victory loss. You're about to be 1-6, and those beat Dallas shirts are going to be put away until next season. So Wilds, I think they should be terrified of their upcoming stretch, most notably this weekend.
Oh, I don't know. They are getting a hot Chiefs team. Remember, after a loss, just like remember when the Chiefs lost to the Ravens, they were going to come back. So who knows? Maybe it'll be 3 losses in a row. Nick Sirianni, get ready. Go for it on 4th down, buddy. Hey, my answer, Jenna, is Wentz watch. Why is that? Because you're on Wentz watch already. I know you thought you got divorced from Carson Wentz. Bad news. You got a text from Carson Wentz. I'm still here. And good news. I'm sticking it to you guys again. The Eagles get the Colts' first-round pick if Wentz plays 75% of the snap. Right now, the guy's at 98%. So when the Eagles fans are watching their team, they got to keep one eye on Wentz. And you're going to be in a weird spot if the Colts, Nick, are bad and Wentz is still playing, where it will actually be beneficial for the Colts to sit Wentz and actually beneficial for Wentz to sit down. It's bizarre.
That's what they'll do. If the Colts are miserable, if they're like 1-8, I think Chris Ballard has to call Carson Wentz in and be like, listen, buddy, we're staring at a top 5 pick. It's not your fault, but we have to sit you the final quarter of the season so we keep the pick. And I think that's in play. I think the Eagles fans need the Colts to just be alive. And then they're going to draft a quarterback.
Yeah,
and they're going to win,
and
Wentz is going to be out.
No, Jacob Eason's going to win like 4 games in a row, and Wentz is going to be all stuck again. So it's just going to be a mess.
It's going to be all stressed out. It's no win for Wentz, wherever he goes, whatever he does. We talk about Kyrie Irving. What is his status for the season? He talked to the media yesterday, not with the rest of his team, over Zoom, because he didn't show up. We're going to talk about what he had to say with you next. This is First Things First. Can we talk about Kyrie Irving now? He took part in Brooklyn's Media Day virtually yesterday, was not able to attend at Barclays Center due to his vaccination status. With New York City requiring pro athletes who play indoors to get the shot, Kyrie was asked yesterday if he plans to get vaccinated before the season. Here's what he had to say.
Honestly, I like to keep that stuff private, man. I'm a human being first, and obviously living in this public sphere, there's just a lot of questions about what's going on in the world of Kyrie. And I think I just would love to just keep that private and, handle it the right way with my team and go forward together with a plan. So, obviously I'm not able to be present there today, but that doesn't mean that I'm putting any limits on the future of me being able to join the team. And I just want to keep it that way. So we can keep that private. And if anybody has any further questions about that, please, it'd be the same response. I would like to keep that private. And just please respect that.
Understanding you want to keep this private, and I do think there's, people should have privacy to a certain extent, but people are speculating about certain stances you have and that you're not going to be available to your team and that kind of thing. And just why don't you want to clear that up to some extent?
Yeah, please respect my privacy. Next question.
As in fans too, they will also want to know, not just us.
Yeah, next question.
Are you concerned about his availability at home games going forward?
No.
So you expect that not to be an issue?
I expect it not to be. That's on Kyrie, and That's his personal decision. What he does is not on us to speculate what may happen. But we trust in Kyrie, and I expect us to have our whole team at some point.
Like 3 most important words there, at some point. Nick, this bothers you. Why?
Well, let me start with the positive. I was glad to hear Kyrie say the public sphere as opposed to the public flat surface. So like maybe there is some evolution of thought on Kyrie's behalf in at least some areas. Unfortunately, not on this one. Listen, Kyrie, if someone has deeply held religious convictions that prevent them from embracing any part of Western medicine, I will never begrudge them that. But Kyrie goes to the knee surgeon more often than I go to the dentist, so that ain't it. And the reason that Kyrie or Andrew Wiggins or any of these guys are hiding behind it's a personal privacy issue is because they know that their opposition is a centimeter deep. That it's an indefensible position that they specifically hold. And it is not a personal question to say, hey, are you going to be able to play home games this year? Kyrie or anybody is allowed to be a nudist if they'd like, but it would prevent them from being able to suit up for an NBA game. That's where this is. So forget the public health component, forget the 600,000 dead component, forget the responsibility as a leader in any community component, just from a basketball component. This is brutal for your team. Kevin Durant look happy answering those questions. Kevin Durant look happy that it's like, you got it. Really? We are the overwhelming favorites. Everyone is healthy. This is the chance to be the best team in Nets history. And you know what? All things work out. One of the best teams in NBA history. And we got Kyrie Irving on IG Live walking around his house talking about how important privacy is. What? And Broussard, this is an untenable position for the Nets. It's not Kyrie's fault in this one regard. There's 27 teams where this would be an inconvenience, but not a devastating blow. But if you play in San Francisco or New York City, not being vaccinated means you can't play home games. And I want your thoughts on this, Broussard, at some point I think you would be better off with no Kyrie Irving than Kyrie just for road games. I don't think you can build a cohesive unit if Kyrie is only, and by the way, it's not like, well, you can play home games in the playoffs though. They're not changing the rules for that. So this is a brutal spot for the Nets. And if it's going to end, Broussard, with Kyrie getting vaccinated anyway, then the hell are we doing? Then what is this other than a look at me, I'm so interesting because I've discovered something on YouTube that the leading virologists in the world haven't discovered in their lab. It's maddening.
Well, to the point you made, Nick, they could get away with it during the regular season. It's not what you want to do. I wouldn't want to do it if I'm running the Nets. But if Kyrie were to only play road games in the regular season, they'd still be fine. They still have the number 1 or number 2 seed in the East. We know that, just based on Harden and Durant and the rest of their roster. The problem is it would continue into the playoffs. And that's where it absolutely cannot happen. We saw it last year. We've seen it every year. Chemistry is important, and you wouldn't have the chemistry. To me, the most hopeful thing, if you're a Nets fan, that Kyrie said yesterday was that he's leaving the door open. He said, I'm not putting any limits on the future of me being able to join the team. That's a door open. All right, that's a door he left open to kind of say, I might get vaccinated. All right, I'm still trying to figure it out. If I'm the Nets, what I would do is talk to Kyrie. I wouldn't give him a hardcore ultimatum. You got to do it in a respectful, nice way. But Kyrie, we need to know within the next 2 weeks if you're going to get vaccinated or whatever the deadline, but a week or two before the regular season starts. but we need to know by this date if you're going to get vaccinated. And if we don't, Nick, I love Kyrie as a player. And while I said last week or 2 weeks ago I'd consider moving him for Simmons, for Damian Lillard, for Bradley Beal, as I think about it, I'd go into this season with Kyrie with the Nets if the vaccination weren't an issue. But if he won't get vaccinated, you don't really have a choice but to move him. And the obvious trade partner, because look, as great as Kyrie is, teams around the league, regardless of the vaccination, aren't lining up to trade for him because of all the issues that he brings. He's unreliable because he's injury prone, number one, but also because of things like this. All right, and when he was a free agent, Wilds, people were not really trying to get just Kyrie. They were willing to take him because Kevin Durant would be part of the package, but teams weren't really just going after Kyrie by himself. The obvious trade partner is Philadelphia with Ben Simmons. And because it's one problem for another problem. My problem for your problem. So if I'm the Nets, I'm going to Kevin Durant quietly if Kyrie doesn't get vaccinated, saying, look, KD, we love Kyrie just as much as you do. But we're trying to win a championship, and he's not going to be here for the home games. So are you cool with us moving him? And if Durant gives the blessing, you might think Durant's got the contract extensions. He's locked up through 2026. Nets can do whatever they want. No, now we see players demand trades no matter how much time is left on their deal. So if KD is cool with it, Wilds, then I'm looking at moving him to Philly for Ben Simmons and Seth Curry. I got to get more back. So give me Seth Curry, a great shooter, and that's what I'm looking at, Wilds.
Okay, so then Embiid would play with Kyrie, who couldn't play in Barclays or Madison Square Garden, so he'd be missing a considerable amount of games there. And I think that would be a mess chemistry-wise. If anything, I think the Sixers need to sort of, settle the ship and not add more tumult to it. But Broussard, you said another name that was interesting that also wouldn't work. Not to pile on, but you said Bradley Beal. While Kyrie got all the headlines, Bradley Beal is out there questioning reporters on the vaccine. I'm like, and I'm going to try to be my most optimistic, Nick, because what Bradley Beal's exchange, if you watch it, if you haven't seen it, Bradley Beal's exchange was a bit of bravado and defiance, almost as a candy coating to sort of fear and a misunderstanding. And he's asked him, like, buddy, Bradley Beal, that guy works for The Athletic. Like, that person is not a virologist. So you don't need to ask them questions or have a back and forth with sports reporters. Which brings me to this point. This is not, if you're against the vaccine, just come out and say, I'm vaccine hesitant. That's what it is. It's not unique or special. There's literally hundreds of millions of people around the world who fall in the category of vaccine hesitant. It is what it is. And there are a number of strategies that can be used to move from vaccine hesitant to vaccinated, with the idea that we're not safe, no one is safe till we're all safe. We got to get everybody vaccinated. Same thing we do with polio, which Kyrie has the vaccine for polio. So Nick, this is an out-of-the-box idea, but hear me out. The first thing that needs to happen is the NBA, which is 90% vaccinated. This is having a lot of news, but the NBA as a whole has a higher vaccination rate than the America at large. So the NBA is doing a good job. At the same time, not good enough, right? I think the Nets and people around Kyrie should take a page out of Ron Rivera's book. We saw the Washington football team was hovering around 60% vaccination. It moved up to 90% in the last report because Ron Rivera aggressively went after misinformation and let people come to their own conclusions once he gave them so much information. Now, the wild idea, and this would be a big win for Kyrie if we talk about evolution of growth, because he's on the record in Boston, he apologized to science teachers, a little tongue-in-cheek, for like, hey, sorry about the whole flat earth thing. So the guy does have the sort of conscious on what his words mean. There's something called the Elvis effect. I don't know if you've heard about the Elvis effect. that in 1956, polio vaccines were down around 6%. It's like, hey, Elvis, do you mind getting vaccinated? Elvis like, yeah, I'll do it. He goes on the Ed Sullivan Show. He gets vaccinated. 6 months later, young people vaccine went from 6% to 80%. If Kyrie, who we know is a thoughtful guy, if he really wanted to make an impact, he would go and get vaccinated publicly and let that be his legacy. You might say it's a wild idea, crazier things that happen. And if Kyrie is as thoughtful as he wants us all to think he is, that is the move.
Yeah, listen, I know I'm tired of pretending that folks who can't decipher the difference between a YouTube comment section and a medical journal are thought leaders. They're not. They've been brain warped by the internet and think they are discovering new ground, but deep down they know they're not, which is why the moment they're questioned about it, they're like, that's HIPAA, that's privacy, that's HIPAA, no, don't. And they say the same buzzwords every time. And by the way, one fact correction, Kyrie is almost assuredly not vaccinated against polio because none of us are anymore because we eradicated it thanks to the vaccine.
Sorry, you're right.
But he is vaccinated against measles, mumps, rubella, a dozen other things. Like, we don't have to get the polio vaccine anymore because it's gone now.
Great call,
but
sorry.
Here's the other thing when we talk about trades. You're fine, Wilds. When we talk about trades, I was not wrong when I said a week ago, and I think now you are seeing further validation, that the Nets were considering trading him, and Kyrie put an end to it by having his folks say he will simply retire. But Wilds, when you hear... What good team in either conference can run the risk of trading real assets for an unvaccinated star, knowing if we play in the playoffs, the Nets, the Knicks, or the Warriors, they can't play in the road games now. So we're like, oh, if it's on another team, it'd be okay. Not for a good team. If you're in either conference, you're like, we want to win a championship. You think you're going to have to go to Golden State at some point? You think you're going to have to go to Brooklyn? You think you're going to have to go to New York? Like, that's a real thing. So it's not my rules. And folks can be, mad at me or say I'm like, this is the rules of engagement to play in the NBA right now. And to act like they're not or it's going to change is foolishness. And if you're the Nets, the juice is starting to not be worth the squeeze, Broussard, when it comes to
Are you saying Philly is out? You saying a Simmons-Kyrie trade is out?
I'm saying if I were running them, I would not want to trade for a player knowing I'm going to have to go to Brooklyn and win, and he's not going to be available. I'm not reporting that. If I were running the team, it would be, I would say, the whole point is to beat Brooklyn, and now you're not going to be able to play in that series, Jenna.
I have to believe this, no matter what he says, does not sit well with Kevin Durant, and he's not going to mention it, but I can't imagine that with all that optimism, like you mentioned, this is what he wants to deal with ahead of the start of a new season. All right, we're going to set that aside. We got a football game to talk about, one Kevin Wilds has been looking forward to for a long time, Belichick versus Brady Bowl. Oh, Wilds will be there Sunday to see the old reunion. Can the Pats pull off the upset? Talk about that next. First things first. First things first. We're talking about a game that's been circled on Kevin Wilds' calendar since the beginning of time. The game of Brady versus Belichick. It's also known as Bucks versus Pats. It's the return of Tom Brady to Foxborough. Fox Bet Sportsbook has Tampa favored by 6.5. I got the over-under on storylines at 6,500. The biggest one, the meeting of two old friends turned foes. 6 Super Bowls between the two and one big fat divorce. Here is Tom Brady on heading back to Gillette.
I'm not going to necessarily reminisce. I don't think this is the moment for that. And I'll have plenty of opportunities to reminisce about my football career. None of which I really care to do right now because I'm so much in the moment. And I'm not going to be thinking about, 20 years of history. I'm going to be thinking about one night of football, a Sunday night game, coming off a really tough loss. They're coming off a really tough loss. So both teams are going to be fighting and clawing for a win.
We got 3-time Pro Bowler LeVar Arrington with us. LeVar, good morning.
Morning.
Wilds, though, got to start with you. Your game, The first game you're going to this season, what is your reaction to what Brady had to say? Let's go.
My reaction is that it's going to be a Patriots upset, LeVar. And I know no one believes me, even though the Patriots do have the second best passing defense in the National Football League. But it's not about that. It's not about Belichick's scheme necessarily, although I do think he knows every single thing that Tom Brady will do because he literally taught him almost everything he knows how to do. I think the emotional weight of this game will distract creature of habit Tom Brady. And I know people are going to be like, no, Wilds. Tom Brady knows how to deal with the pressure. Tom Brady, when you get to a big moment, yeah, I know that. That's because he's had dozens and dozens of game-winning drives. I get it. You know why he's comfortable in the Super Bowl? The guy's been to 10 Super Bowls. He has never stepped into Foxborough in this bizarre setting. It would almost be easier if it was LeBron going back to Cleveland from Miami, where it's like, wow, people are going to really be mad at me, and I will use that as fuel. You saw it with when KD went back to Oklahoma City. We did that game, and it was like people had those cupcake signs. You can take one emotion and be like, oh, everyone's going to be mad at me? All right, I'll wear the black hat and step up. We saw it with Trae Young in Madison Square Garden. But with this, we're like, I'm being cheered. There's Adele songs playing out here. I see all my banners. Before the game, people are hugging me. My family is here. People are wearing Tampa Bay jerseys. I'm on the wrong sideline. I think it is just a wild goulash of emotions, LeVar, that will lead to a Patriots victory.
I think you've created quite the fantasy of what this could all end up being. But in reality, Tom Brady is a really, really amazing football player that is focused in on going back to a place, which, by the way, a ton of subterfuge. I mean, I love my background. Don't y'all love my background? I'm so makeshift over here.
Yeah,
the subterfuge from Belichick is amazing, and it's phenomenal because to put out there ahead of time, you know, the report from Tom Brady's trainer about how Brady was treated by Belichick and his inability to adjust and treat him as a man, basically a grown man. And then you know, Belichick kind of responding in a very Belichickian way, which is, you know what, he had a better option in Tampa Bay. I think that there is a healthy sense of I do not want to lose to one another going into this game. And I think that it's going to serve its purpose in terms of how competitive this game will be. But keep in mind, right, and this is one thing as a football player, maybe I bring the fun out of it just a tad bit. Maybe I suck the air out of it a tad bit with this take. But Belichick has to run the entire game. He has to have his coaching staff and his personnel and his players ready to win an entire game. Belichick is going against Tampa Bay and Bruce Arians for all intents and purposes. He is not going up against Tom Brady. Tom Brady, however, is going up against Bill Belichick and his defense and the schemes that they will present to him and see what it is that takes place. Now, they talk about the success that Belichick has against rookie quarterbacks. It'll be interesting to see what type of success he has against quarterbacks that he's coached for over 2 decades. And that will be, to me, to your point, Wilds, the familiarity that Bill Belichick has for Tom Brady, because Tom Brady was developed into the quarterback that he is through the coaching of Bill Belichick and his coaching staff. I think it'll be interesting to see how Bill Belichick schemes him, and I think that will make for great TV as well, because I do not believe Bill Belichick wants to be the guy that let the GOAT go. He goes and brings in the guys he wants, wins a Super Bowl, and then comes back home and stomps your tail out. I just don't think that that's what Bill Belichick wants, and I don't think that that's what Kraft wants, and I don't think that really anybody that's connected to New England that is still New England pro versus Tom Brady pro wants to see.
LeVar, you're right. They don't want that, but that's exactly what they're going to get. And let me address Wilds. And you the perfect word, LeVar, fantasy. Because that's what that was, Wilds. That was an absolute goulash of dreams and leprechauns and pixie dust and all of that. It's not happening. One of the necessities, one of the character traits you have to get to be a Tom Brady is that you can control your emotions. You don't get over emotional. You don't read your press clippings, to use a common phrase. All right, you don't look at what you've already done. Oh, aren't I great? Look at what everybody's saying about me. No, you keep moving forward. And I think what Tom Brady said in that quote we played is exactly how he's going to feel. He is going to be ticked off, number one, because they just lost a big game to the Rams. And I think he had designs on going undefeated this season. All right, so he is going in there fired up. Obviously, there's the Belichick factor. Okay. He wants to prove him wrong. Who knows him better than his dad? And his dad said he wants to go in there and prove Belichick wrong. I think Tom Brady's going to throw for at least 350 yards, if not 400 plus.
You guys are all missing
and at least three touchdowns, if not 4 touchdowns, Wiles. It is going to be ugly for your Patriots. I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
Wilds, respond real quick, and then I'll button it up. Go ahead, because you're frothing at the mouth. I got it. So,
Broussard, he's not a robot. Like, we've all been to boxing matches. You know why they don't play Adele on the walk-up? Yeah. Because you want to be fired up. The boxers want to be fired up. They're like,
Tyson Fury didn't do that when he fought Deontay Wilder last time.
So the emotion is going to be so bizarre. He can't be fired up. He's not going to run and be like, yeah. He's going to be practically weeping.
But let me one thing quick in response to Wilds. You called him a creature of habit, Wilds. But last year, after 20 years in New England, he goes to a completely different operation. New coach, new offense, hasn't had the offseason to work with his teammates. And what do? Oh, they win the Super Bowl. So what? The creature of habit went to a new place and was great.
I hate to say this to the panel, but unfortunately, all three of you have talked, and all three of you have missed the point. The point is this. The Bucs could deactivate Brady and start Kyle Trask. They're still going to win. The Patriots stink. They have 4 offensive touchdowns this year. They have 2 touchdown drives the whole season that didn't start in the opponent's field position. They have 0 plays of more than 35 yards. You know, Broussard's getting his little jollies off about my Falcons playoff pick. How's your Patriots playoff pick looking? They're terrible. So Brady could have a midlife crisis on the field. They're not going to win. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback for the Bucs because the Patriots have no explosive playmakers, a bad quarterback, and their best defensive players still hurt, Jenna. So Wilds might be right about Brady. So now they'll only win 21-16 because the Patriots, unless they're playing Zach Wilson, can't score points, Jenna.
It matters.
Fact check you, Nick. Brady won't have a midlife crisis for another 20 years. The guy's going to live to 137.
That's true.
So you're all wrong.
Amen, Jenna.
Good point, Jenna.
Seen his hair? You seen that chiseled chin? Talking Dak and the boys. Let's get back to last night's game. Looked good last night, those Cowboys. Are they a real threat to win the NFC? We'll discuss next. First things first. Thanks, LeVar. Sunday on Fox, Sam Darnold leading the undefeated Panthers against Dak and the Cowboys. Or you got Russell Wilson leading the Seahawks in an NFC West showdown against the 49ers. Oh, big action this week only on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Time now for stories to start your morning. Brought to you by Subway. Cowboys putting on quite a show in their home opener. Dak Prescott, 238 yards, 3 touchdowns against that Eagles offense. Ezekiel Elliott had his best game of the season, 95 yards and 2 TDs. Boys getting it done last night, beating the Birds 41-21. And then just for a little something on top, Dallas's Twitter account, beat by Dallas. Little dig at Nick Sirianni's motivational tool this week. Divisional wins, always just a little bit sweeter. What do you think, Dak Prescott?
complete from defense, offense, complementary football, all the way around. Just from halftime, just the way to continue it, the way we communicate it. That was fun. I think that showed just the brotherhood that we're creating and the culture that we're creating within this team. And that's just one, and that's just a step, and that was a big step in the building block of where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish.
All right, Broussard, is it starting to look like the Cowboys are legit contenders now in the NFC?
Jenna, I said before last night's game, I said on our radio show, The Odd Couple with Rob Parker, Fox Sports Radio, that if the Cowboys are legit, they've got to blow out Philadelphia. All right, because that's not a team that is in their league. All right, and they should blow them out, and that's what they did. So credit to them for that. But I am not ready yet to give them contender status, meaning that they are a team that I think has a legitimate chance of emerging from the NFC playoffs as a Super Bowl team. I don't see that. I've got them fourth in the NFC behind Tampa Bay, the LA Rams, and the Green Bay Packers. All those teams, I believe, are better than Dallas. So what I see from the Cowboys, they're going to roll through that division. The division is horrible. It's as bad as we thought. It might even be worse than we thought. They should go no worse than 5-1, and that's if they have a brain freeze and aren't mentally ready for one of these games. They should really go 6-0 in their division, so they could have a good seed in the playoffs, and they could win a playoff game. But I can't see them beating one of those three teams in front of them in the playoffs to get to the NFC title game or the Super Bowl. The offense, I love the balance, Nick, that they're bringing. The run game the last 2 weeks has been great. Ezekiel Elliott turned back the clock. I really think all of the talk about Zeke being washed up, Zeke not being what he used to be, Tony Pollard being better than Zeke, I think that has fueled him. He was running over guys last night, breaking tackles. For the first time I've seen it in a long time. He ran with a zeal that he hadn't run with in a while. So he's got to keep that up. We know what Dak can do through the air with those receivers. I think the defense is the question. The defense is much improved. Dan Quinn's done a great job as the defensive coordinator. They definitely are better. I think Trayvon Diggs could be a Pro Bowler this year. Micah Parsons, we know all that. And they got reinforcements coming. But they've still given up over 320 yards passing in every one of their games. All right? And look at the three guys they have to beat, as I mentioned, Brady, Stafford, Rodgers. Those guys will have a field day against this Dallas defense if it doesn't improve. So I'm giving them room over the next several weeks to improve and get better in their pass defense. But until they do that, Nick, I've got them a good playoff team, but not a contender.
Yeah, and I think it will be impossible for them to be Super Bowl contenders because it will be impossible for them to be so good they are not playing close playoff games. And if we know anything from watching Mike McCarthy for a decade, Mike McCarthy for 2 years as Dallas head coach, or Mike McCarthy for the last 2 weeks, if it's a close game and clock management and game management matters, the Cowboys are going to be at a decided disadvantage no matter who the other team's coach is. Last week, Wilds, he had the excuse of the clock went out. We had a player run on the field. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. What do you want from me? Yesterday,
wow, good.
They had the Eagles in a 3rd and 24 at their own 32 with a minute 50 left. He doesn't call timeout. They get him in a 4th and 5 with a minute left. The referee walks over to him. Mike, you got 2 timeouts. Dak's 14 of 16. You should probably call it. No, I'm not going to do it. There are right now kids that haven't, or college kids that are still up from the night before, hung over, a little high, playing Madden, who are like, press select. I would press select there. I would hit the select button and call timeout. What are you doing? You can't win a championship if this guy is going to step on the same rake he stepped on year after year in Green Bay. It cost the Packers an NFC championship game against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. Should have gotten Brady Rodgers in the Super Bowl. So no, I know Cowboys fans don't want to hear it this morning. I feel worse about the Cowboys because it's just further confirmation, Wilds. Their coach cannot, forget clock management. I'm not convinced he can tell time. I don't know that I'd be comfortable with him setting the timer for a coffee maker. Like, he can't do it. Just can't do it, man.
For the record, the coffee maker thing is a little bit confusing. Like, I don't need the PM setting. Obviously, I'm talking about AM.
It's like the VCR.
3:30 p.m. What are you doing, coffee maker? In any event, Nick, I think you make a valid point, and the Cowboys need to just hire somebody, because the most interesting thing that happened in the Manning cast was Peyton Manning visibly angry and not holding anything back. Like on the broadcast, Jenna, they'll be like, hey, you should call a timeout. Peyton Manning was sort of free from broadcast constraints and was really ripping him. But Eli also was like, hey, don't they have the clock management guy in their ear? If they don't, they need to get someone who's either louder or rehire that position. I would nominate our buddy Nick Wright. He's already got the Azuro set up. Could just go right in there. We already have a virtual setup. So, yeah, Nick Wright.
He's got the nice tie.
It's just a consulting gig. You're still on the show.
Got the hair pulled back.
Have Rich call.
Yeah, I like it. All right. I like where we're ending today. LeBron James, he joined the Manning brothers' Monday Night Football broadcast last night. Got asked the question, did you ever come close to pursuing football? Listen to what the King had to say.
Jerry Jones offered me a contract. Also, Pete Carroll did as well in Seattle during our lockout time. And it definitely got my blood flowing again, got my mind racing again, thinking about the game of football, being out there on Sundays. But, we was able to get a deal done in the NBA, and I was back on the court in no time. But I definitely thought about it.
Oh, there was some contemplating. Broussard, you buying that LeBron could have played in the NFL?
Are you watching this highlight? Of course he could. Look at that. Yeah, Jenna, absolutely. Let me, because there are doubters out there. LeBron James was an all-state wide receiver as a sophomore in Ohio. And people brush, I was great in high school football, blah, blah. No, forget all that. Ohio is a football state. It ain't a basketball state. It is a football state. And he was a phenomenal player at a football school. St. Vincent St. Mary, they put 5 guys in the NFL, 2 in like the last 6 years. All right, so LeBron James, had he chosen football over basketball, would have been a perennial Pro Bowler, I think, in the NFL. But even in 2011, had he sitting out, 8 years or 9 years from playing football, I think at 27 in his athletic prime, he still could have stepped into the NFL and after a season or so gotten his bearings and been really good. We've seen Antonio Gates from Kent State didn't even play college football. Probably a Hall of Famer.
You're underselling it. You're underselling it. Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham, Tony Gonzalez, what do they all have in common? Some of the best tight ends ever, basketball players. What does LeBron have on them? Well, he's faster than them, he's taller than them, he's bigger than them, he can jump higher than them. Like, would LeBron have dominated sport X? Does it involve athleticism? Does he know the rules? Then yeah, he would. Guess what? If LeBron in 2011 was like, hey, I want to be the best goalie in international soccer, give him probably 6 months. You want to be a red zone threat and be unguardable like Peyton was talking about? No problem. Oh, guys, football's, it's so physical. Oh, so the biggest, strongest guy who didn't get hurt for 15 years, I think it would work in his favor. Like, I think people act like this is a hot take. It's obvious. Wilds, the wildly overrated Bo Jackson could do it. Of course LeBron could do it. Like, what are we talking about? Stop. What are we talking about?
You went a little overboard, Nick, but I'm with you for the most part.
The fact that you're from Kansas City and you take shots at Bo Jackson is the worst
the football player,
part
not
of
the
your personality.
That's your takeaway?
He was a great baseball
player. Either one, he's fantastic. Don't make fun of Bo Jackson. And if you want to prove how great he is, You know what? Suit up for the Birmingham Barons. Suit up for the Birmingham Barons. Let me see you get some infield hits. Let me see you get out there in center field if you're that great. If you want to do 2 sports, there is a model that you need to follow. You got to hit at least about 238 for Birmingham Barons if you want to do 2 sports. Not tight end.
This is not a LeBron thing, Broussard. Broussard, guess what? I think Steph Curry, if he dedicated his life to it, could be one of the 10 best golfers in the world. Yeah, of course. Oh, golf. The great athletes are great athletes, guys. No, Steph wouldn't be a tight end. Steph probably has some size issues. The great athletes are great athletes. Like, they can go do it. Julius Peppers played basketball, came in one of the best defensive ends ever. Like, this is not a hot take. Cowboys, I think he'd have been better than Witten. I'll tell you that much. Who would you rather have, Witten or LeBron? They're going to put Witten in the Hall of Fame. Come on, be honest.
Look at that.
Be honest,
Wow.
America.
Look at that.
You know
Speech.
LeBron.
Wow, you got to get on the bandwagon.
That's it for us. Undisputed starts right now.
Nick did oversell it.